What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, man. You know we only go live for the biggest news out there, especially on at Monday at 4 o'clock. Definitely not usually our live stream time, but man, we have some big news from the transfer portal. Daylen Baldwin has announced where he's taking his talents. He has announced that he is transferring back home to Michigan to play for the Wolverines for the next at least 2 years. This comes with 2 years of eligibility left for Baldwin in his college career. And in case you guys don't know, Baldwin is back in his home state. He's from Farmington, Michigan, which is I looked it up, about 30 minutes from the Ann Arbor campus. So he's going to be playing really, really, really close to home, back in his home state where he really didn't get a lot of respect as a high school recruit coming out of high school in Farmington. But he credited on Michigan's 247 site, he credited the relationship with offensive coordinator Josh Gaddis, who was previously the offensive coordinator at Alabama for under Nick Saban, and now he's with Harbaugh at Michigan. Credited his relationship with Gaddis and the roster outlook as the two main reasons, along with being close to home, as the reasons Michigan was the choice over other places like Ohio State. The Ohio State offer got so much attention, but when you look at that wide receiving room, they've had 3-4 years of five-star, the elite of the elite talent come through Ohio State. So I don't know if Baldwin would have been able to come in and make as big of an impact as he's going to have for Michigan. Overlooked as a prospect, like I said, guys, this kid wasn't even ranked by 247 Sports. His only offer was Morgan State, which is where he started his career before transferring to Jackson State, where he had to sit out the 19 season due to the current transfer rules. But now he's going to be immediately eligible, not only because he's a graduate transfer, but the new transfer rules. As long as you're committed to your school or enrolled in your school by July 1st, you're going to be eligible no matter where you transfer. So this is big. Last year, guys, 27 catches, 540 yards, 7 touchdowns for the Jackson State Tigers in only 6 games in the shortened 2020 spring season. He led the SWAC in receiving yards. He led the SWAC in touchdowns. He was the SWAC newcomer of the year. So, we had our breaking news episode where we announced the transfers from Jackson State already. So you guys can go check that out. I'll link that below. But like I said, he's going to have 2 years of eligibility left. He feels an immediate need for the Wolverines at wide receiver, which is what we're probably going to be focused on the most today because we've already kind of covered how this affects Jackson State. So while y'all are in here, man, comment y'all's thoughts on the transfer. What do you think about Baldwin going to Michigan, and how do you think he's going to fit in there? When I look at Michigan's roster, at the end of the 2020 season, they lost their leading receiver for, I think, the past 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, Nico Collins to the NFL. Then Giles Jackson transfers. Xavier Worthy transfers out of the wide receiving room as well. And so this made the position a huge need for the Wolverines. I was reading up on Michigan's 247 site. They were expected to take 4 to 6 wide receivers in the 2022 class because they were that worried about the future of the wide receiving position in Michigan. Ronnie Bell was the only guy coming back for the Wolverines that had any sort of playing experience, any sort of game experience. I mean, it was Ronnie Bell, and that was going to be it for Cade McNamara, who was probably going to be the starting quarterback for Michigan this year, if I had to make a guess. That also signals that Baldwin's probably going to be a close wide receiver too. And if he can get to campus, learn the playbook, kind of carve out his role, he could be almost like a 1A, 1B option with Ronnie Bell in terms of what Michigan's going to put out there at the wide receiving spot. You got Cornelius Johnson. You've got Mike Sands. I think it's Sandra still. That last name's kill me on that one. They're both returning, but Baldwin has more experience than him. He's more explosive than both of those options. And I think overall, Baldwin's going to be better for trying to expand this Michigan passing attack, which has been anemic at times over the years. So for me, I think Ronnie Bell, Baldwin are going to be the 1 and 2 guys. Probably Cornelius Johnson as a close third. So reading kind of, I went through Michigan's 247 boards. I went through all type of Michigan articles about their wide receiving room. Many Wolverines beat reporters really think Baldwin's going to probably be wide receiver 2 or 3 this year. But this commitment, this transfer, is more so for Michigan next year. Based on what I've been reading. I personally, I think it's going to be bigger this year, but next year will be important too because everyone leaves for Michigan next year. Ronnie Bell graduates, and so you're going to have such a young wide receiver room, unproven. Baldwin's going to be that guy you can depend on in the big games. That he's really going to be kind of like look for as like the go-to guy in 2022. This commitment really plays a bigger role for 2022 for Michigan to a lot of people. We got a comment here. McNamara will be that guy at QB for Michigan. I agree. And he's going to be wide receiver 2. I definitely agree this year. He'll at least be wide receiver 2. And I think the talent Baldwin, the potential he has, he could get 1 if Bell doesn't pan out all the way. Because we've seen Bell be inconsistent at times in some of the bigger games for Michigan. And we saw Baldwin this year, he can put it on every single week in the biggest stages. He can step up and go make a play for your quarterback. And that's really something, Nico Collins kind of did it, but we haven't really seen Michigan have that go-to guy that can make plays consistently, be the consistent deep threat. Michigan's offense has been really bad in the biggest games. It's cost them. I mean, you look at the Ohio State games. I mean, how do you expect to beat Ohio State when you can't score 20 points a game? Wisconsin shut them down this year. Joe Milton played an abysmal game this year against Wisconsin in the Big House at home. So McNamara showed some really, really nice things at the end of last year. That's kind of when they went on that they won 2 games at the end of the year, and then they were competitive in all their games. So I do agree there that it'll be wide receiver 2. McNamara is going to be the starter for Michigan. And also shout out to our guy over here, Tomorrow's Leader Sports Network. Make sure to go subscribe to them. Coach does an amazing, amazing job over there. So make sure to go check out him along with our boy All Script and Cut Day over there, man. Those guys are always doing it big. But I'm looking at Michigan and what the expectations are for Harbaugh. When you look at Harbaugh, he's supposed to come in. You expect him to have this hellacious defense with Don Brown on the defensive side of the ball as defensive coordinator. He brings in Josh Gaddis. He's supposed to turn it into this spread attack. They're going to put up 30, 40 points a game, and it hasn't been that for the Wolverines yet. And so I think this is a do or die year. They go out, get Daylen Baldwin, who's done it on the big stages, who's done it in a competitive conference in the SWAC, who was the SWAC newcomer of the year, led the SWAC in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. Like I said, this kid has went out there and proven it. He's went out there and balled, and I think he bet on himself, just like Cut Day said. He went and bet on himself, and it's paying off. And this narrative surrounding Daylen Baldwin that he didn't want to compete, that he was running from the roster of Jackson State. Man, he's stepping in here. He's going to go against Ronnie Bell, who's probably going to be a top half end draft. Probably that second, third round is about where Ronnie Bell could be. He has some big, talented 4-stars behind him that he's going to be competing against. And Michigan already has 2 of the higher rated 4-stars already committed for the 2022 class that are expected to come in and compete for playing time. There's competition wherever you transfer, guys. And you're considering Ohio State, but he was running from the competition. That narrative has to end now that he's taken a step up, and this is where he's announced. You can't say he didn't want to compete, because he's going to have to compete to see the field at Michigan. And I think I'd speak for everyone who covers HBCU football, SWAC football, college football. Daylen Baldwin's a baller, and there was no question that the reason he transferred wasn't running from competition. It was because, and I think we've seen this a lot this year too. So it's kind of like a hypothetical thing. A lot of players have transferred because they get that one free transfer. there's open roster spots all around the country because of the roster kind of turmoil that was created by COVID. A lot of teams have holes they're trying to fill, and it's a lot of win now in college football. And so you get one free transfer. Daylen Baldwin understood that he was going to have an opportunity to go move up and play Power 5 football. So he took that chance. He bet on himself. And when you have a chance to better your career, take a step up into Power 5 football, to go play for a program like Michigan in the Big Ten, where they're always projected to do big things. You have a chance to go play against the best of the best at Ohio State, the best of the best at Indiana, who Tywan Mullen at Indiana is probably going to be the best corner in college football this year, in case you don't know that name already. You get to go play the Nebraskas. You get to go play the Minnesotas, the Wisconsins. It puts him on this grand stage where he bet on himself. And I would bet, just based on my personal opinion, y'all comment below what y'all think. I think Daylen Baldwin is going to shine this year. And I would not be surprised if he can get some all-season chemistry with K. McNamara at quarterback. I think Daylen Baldwin, I would not be shocked if he led Michigan in receiving this season. And if Michigan can get that offense going and Daylen Baldwin emerges as one of their go-to guys, and him and Ronnie Bell combined to make one of the better wide receiving duos in the Big Ten, we can see Michigan kind of rebound from that 2-4 season where they almost get knocked off by Rutgers at one point. Terrible showing last year. You can tell Jim Harbaugh's in win-now mode, and I am so impressed that Daylen Baldwin bet on himself and landed himself in a great opportunity like this. So as we wrap up here, guys, comment below what you think of the transfer. Comment below what y'all's expectations are for Daylen Baldwin. We'll probably cover this again on a 2-minute drill episode, do a big in-depth full breakdown. But tonight on the 2-minute drill, already had our topic. We're doing the top 10 HBCU players headed into the 2021 season. So I didn't want to move that topic back. We've put a lot of work into that one. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. But for Jackson State, as we wrap this up, this leaves them with Corey Reed Jr. probably as the wide receiver one for them. He tied Baldwin with 27 catches in the spring. Well, before we get to that, got a comment here. Jim Harbaugh's job is on the line. The hot seat is real. I agree. Coach, I don't know how long you've been watching the show. I've been on the Harbaugh hot seat train since 2019, man. I think he has been way overpaid, way overvalued, and given such a extraordinarily long leash in terms of what he was able to get away with. If you can't beat your rival in 5 seasons, what are you doing? Even Gus Malzahn at Auburn could beat Nick Saban at Alabama every once in a while. Jim Harbaugh, the hot seat is real, Coach. I completely agree with you. That job is on the line. And I'm telling you, if he doesn't get 7 wins this year, I think it's going to be real hard for Jim Harbaugh to keep his job at Michigan. Yeah, he said he's been checking you out. Michigan fan from a kid. That's where I'm originally from. I like that, man. I think college football. So I think there's a few programs around college football kind of building off this. Texas, USC, Nebraska, and Michigan. I think all those programs need to get better. I think you could probably throw Florida State in the mix too. College football is better when those programs are good. And so I always kind of root for those programs to kind of get things turned around. But I agree with you. I think if Jim Harbaugh doesn't do it this year, you got to get a new direction, and you got to get some excitement, some energy kind of injected into that program. But, as we kind of wind down here, Jackson State's wide receiving a breakdown. I kind of was looking to see where they go from here. They lose Daylen Baldwin. They got Corey Reed Jr., probably going to be one of their top guys. 27 catches last year, tied Daylen Baldwin. Shane Hooks from Colorado is going to be a issue. Keith Corbin from Houston. This is a guy. Listen, Keith Corbin from Houston is my favorite wide receiver Jackson State's landed this all season, and I think he's got the least amount of shine since he's committed. Keith Corbin was a preseason All-American for the AAC 2 straight years before he left Houston. He's really the only wide receiver transfer Jackson State's landed that has done anything on the field. So I think you guys should pay attention to Keith Corbin this upcoming season. I think he's going to be a really good kid. I think he's gonna be the guy that's kind of tasked with replacing Daylen Baldwin. And then of course the Josh Lanier transfer from Alabama. Everyone apparently thinks he's going to win the Heisman. I think he needs to do it on the field first, but we'll see there. So that's kind of what Jackson State's left with. What Shadur Sanders is kind of left with in his wide receiving room. Let's see. We got Florida State is building. Coach has 2 years. They are building, and I don't know if you saw this. I think Florida State is doing an amazing job on the recruiting trail. They had that Midnight Madness recruiting special right when the dead period ended, and I thought what they did with that was amazing. They got a 5-star kid. I'm trying to think of the name. Travis Hunter is committed to Florida State. He's kind of taken on that role as lead recruiter for the Seminoles. And so I think if they can get like one more 5-star and a few more of those impact 4-stars, which I think they can, I love where they're going. I think Mike Norvell really stepped off with like on the wrong foot. He had an issue with Marvin Wilson where anytime you beef with your best player on your team, probably not going to go well as a first-year head coach. And then you had to deal with the whole COVID situation. I think Mike Norvell is a much better hire than what they had, a much better head coach than what they had. So I think Florida State's on its way back, like you said. Yeah, I'll give the coach like two more, maybe 3 more years, depending on how they do this year. I think this year they at least have to come in that second to fourth range in the ACC somewhere in there. They have to show that they can be somewhat competitive because you can't open up with a loss to Georgia Tech last year like you did and get embarrassed by a team that was projected to win almost no games. You're going to have to beat those teams, and you're going to have to show consistently that you can beat the Virginia Techs, the Miamis, teams like that year in and year out. I think that's kind of what Florida State has to do with the next step. We also got a comment, Jim Harbaugh must win out. There's no tomorrow. I agree. You got to win now. I mean, I would be interested to know if Jim Harbaugh, let's say, has another 9-win season. He goes 9-3, wins the bowl game, gets to 10-3. That's 10 wins. Double-digit wins is always good, but he gets blown out by Ohio State again. I mean, as a Michigan fan, how do you take that? Because that'd be what 0-6 against Ohio State now as the head coach of Michigan. So I'd be real interested to see kind of like what the cutoff is going to be for Harbaugh, because I think the main cutoff is at least 7-8 wins. He said he will be fired. So, Coach, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I don't know if Michigan's up to the task to beat Ohio State this year, especially with what they're bringing back. But I mean, I guess if you're looking at in terms of quarterback play and things like that, this is the first year I think Ohio State is kind of up for grabs in that, because we really don't know anything about how these quarterbacks are going to play. I think that Oregon game week 2 in Columbus is going to be huge for determining what Ohio State is going to be this year. But man, if there's a year Michigan has a shot to knock them off, it needs to be this year. I think it all hinges on, can that defense live up to the potential for the Wolverines? And can Cade McNamara take that next step and be a top 3, top 4 quarterback in the Big Ten? Because I think there's a real opening for that. I mean, we have Tanner Morgan at Minnesota. You would have Graham Mertz at Wisconsin up there, Michael Penix in Indiana. If Cade McNamara can slip in right up there with those guys, I think Michigan is going to have a decent shot at a lot of games this year. So that'll definitely be interesting. But, guys, I appreciate all y'all tuning in, man. Daylen Baldwin heading to Michigan. I'm about to go get ready for our 2-minute drill. As I said earlier, check it out tomorrow. We are covering Pro Football Network released a list of the top 10 players in HBCUs for the 2021 season. We're breaking that list down, saying who they missed, who shouldn't be on the list. We're breaking it all down on the 2-minute drill tonight as we're recording. Be up tomorrow, 8 a.m. Central Time, as always, guys. But for myself, for the Blue Bloods, man, I'm out for now, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.